A single massive unit forms to move down from the high ground, cross the airfield, and strike at the heart of the American line. The Marines expect a banzai charge. Instead, the Japanese advance slowly, protected by 13 tanks.
The Japanese had only light tanks in contrast to the amphibious version of the American Sherman tank. And so when they got together, the Japanese were decimated. Again, a bad impact on their morale. Then, of course, they have to be prepared for the idea that the Americans are going to advance further towards the northern end of the island, where they really are entrenched in these caves.
Nakagawa's counterattack fails. All his tanks are destroyed. His best infantry divisions have been decimated. The Marines regroup and head for the airfield.
I think it took 4 to 5, 6 weeks, I believe. I don't know the exact time. But it wasn't an overnight affair. War is not planned. You plan it, but it doesn't work out according to plans too many times.
The battle for the lowlands of Peleliu is almost over. Soldiers are able to tend to the wounded and add up the losses. Some companies have lost over 50% of their men. 500 Japanese corpses also litter the battlefield. Reserves land to reinforce the Marines. They bring with them supplies and food. September 19th, with temperatures of 115 degrees, Marines climb the slopes of the Coral Mountain, where the Japanese have their defensive caves. In the blistering heat, they must assault and reduce each holding position one at a time. After 8 days of this kind of fighting, some companies are pulled back to a safe beach. Then they're returned aboard ship for some rest and relaxation from battle. For those who are wounded, their tour of duty is over for the moment. September 23rd. When the Marines get to the large caves, they are hit hard. American casualties mount rapidly, and the Marines give this mountain a name. They call it Bloody Nose Ridge.
Bloody Nose Ridge basically refers to the high ground, and the Japanese had the high position here, so they felt that they were confident. I mean, that tactically, normally, the people who have the high ground could fire down on the attackers coming up from below. So they were super confident. And indeed, they did inflict a lot of casualties on the American forces, who did persist and eventually take those heights.
You're trying to get 5,000 men out of a cave that the only way you're going to get into is you're going to lose everything you've got. It's going to take a while. But it was just one opening at a time. That's just how it played out. The only way you did it is flamethrowers, or you just spark them. Some kind of explosive that you threw in the opening, and that would tend to close the opening.
The situation on Angkor grew increasingly desperate for the Japanese. In 6 hours, 1,500 Japanese were killed by American troops on Angkor. The survivors, there were a few survivors, tried to dig in to escape the flamethrowers. They were trying to entrench themselves in trench because you didn't have the caves like you had in Peleliu itself. So they're just trying to dig down to escape the attack. The the conditions for the Japanese on Peleliu as the battle approached its conclusion were absolutely terrible. They were short on rations, food, water. They faced this overwhelming American force which was heavily armed. But they maintained their spirit, their morale, even though they knew they were defeated.
Finally, after weeks of combat on Peleliu, the capture of caves comes to a climax. American troops now penetrate the last pocket of resistance. What they find is astonishing. This is the largest underground complex on the island fortress, capable of holding more than 1,000 troops.
The troops that were there had not been exposed to big battles where flamethrowers had been used, and so the possibility that they could be used, they could just burn in these things and die that way. This asphyxiation must have been terribly frightening to them. Yet, they stuck it out. They prevailed.
On October 12th, 1 month after the initial bombings, the 1st Marine Division, with half its troops out of action, declares the assault at an end. For Marines like Jasper Hood, the news couldn't be better.
And nothing better than getting out of that crumb that you've been living in, and you're not going to get shot at anymore. When you're under 4 months of hell, it does something to you also. And when you had to climb up those cargo nets to get back aboard ship, it was like walking up a step. Some guys couldn't do it. There's nothing nice about a war. Nobody wins.
For some Japanese holdouts, fighting would continue for 6 more weeks. Even then, a handful of soldiers refuse to believe they have lost the battle.
In 1947, they found 33 holdouts on Peleliu who were still in the jungle and hadn't given up and weren't going to give up and had to be persuaded to finally give up and surrender and admit that the war was over.